Hello there and welcome. I'm Randy Cross, and this is Unsafe Spaces USA. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. This is a fun time for us. Hopefully you'll enjoy what we have to offer as much as we enjoy presenting it. Again, you can go to unsafespacesusa.com for any backlogs or former shows you may want to see or listen to. And if you have any suggestions on the show, producer at unsafespacesusa.com is the place to go. Let's start this thing off, and let's go to the week that was. Unfortunately, the week that was, again, was low-lighted by a hurricane, by a natural disaster that affected millions and millions of people. This one, Maria specifically, just devastated Puerto Rico, Turks and Caicos. I mean, you had an island the size of Puerto Rico, no electricity, none, zero. It just kind of knocked them back. And when I say knocked them back, I mean a couple hundred years. No electricity, no internet, no nothing. They're going to have a hard time getting water together. All sorts of just basic functions are not working. So not only thoughts and prayers and all that other fun stuff, get a hold of the Red Cross. Do whatever you can do, because the people there are going to need an awful lot of help. Somebody that had a bit of a challenging week, started out really good. The president, Donald Trump, went to the UN and by all accounts handled himself at that time extremely well and gave a very well reviewed speech to the members. Check this out.
If the righteous many do not confront the wicked few, then evil will triumph. When decent people and nations become bystanders to history, the forces of destruction only gather power and strength. No one has shown more contempt for other nations and for the well-being of their own people than the depraved regime in North Korea. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
That got a lot of people's attention. No one likes threats, but take that more as a guarantee than a threat. I personally like it when our leader talks like that in plain language to people that only understand plain language. But that's just me, in my opinion. Also, we got a few rocket mans in there too, referring to Kim Jong-un. And that also is, I don't know, amusing. And that is something I don't mind. Next story up is something that it just stuns me how surprised people are when this happens. And not like we haven't had warning that baseball games are not safe to sit near the field. And I'm not talking behind the screens. I'm talking about down the lines, because there are no screens down the lines. Hello? Balls are hit going over 100 miles an hour. And in a Yankees game the other day, we were reminded how unsafe it is to be sitting in those areas. Yeah, it's.
These are good. Look out. Oh, my goodness. That is scary. It was.
Yeah, very scary. Do not stop. Do not even hesitate the second the baseball season starts in 2018 or 2000, whenever, it's got to be standard in baseball parks. I'm talking about minor leagues. I'm talking about professionals. You've got to have screens up all the way across so people can't be hit like that. And if you don't put them up, you should be held financially responsible. None of this waiver on the back of the ticket like, you know, we go to a golf tournament, you get hit by a golf ball. That's part of the waiver. My ass. That should be baseball's fault. You've been warned. You've seen what happens. Anything else that happens after this, it's on you. Period. All right. Next up on our parade here is, I was in on it last week that the end of the world was coming September 23rd. And I shared it. I gave you fair warning. And actually on September 23rd, some people took that little announcement that we got right there on the screen to heart because it scared a lot of people that they were warned that the end of the world was coming. Now, since that happened, they've backed off and said, you know what? It wasn't like it was actually going to end on the 23rd. The beginning of the end was on the 23rd. Okay, I'm with you on that. But still, well, this video describes it best.
Some Orange County residents were stunned Thursday, September 21, when television programming was suddenly interrupted for about a minute with an ominous message predicting the end of the world. Realize this, extremely violent times will come, a man's voice boomed, according to a video of the alert.
Well, we're waiting.
The great Ted Knight. And we are. We're waiting. We're waiting. You know, is something coming? Actually, in a side note, the numerological expert that originally had come up with a lot of these stories about he had figured out that the 23rd was the date. He's suing some media members because he thinks he was taken advantage of and his projections were blown way out of proportion. Hey, dude, I'm sorry. When you say the 23rd is the end of everything and you're not right, you're going to get a little blowback. That's the only way to look at it. Let's take a look at what went on this weekend in the world of sports, specifically football. And we're going to start out with college football. And the team that's been pretty good this year, Alabama so far, played against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was going to put up a fight. Vanderbilt was at home. Vanderbilt did squat. Vanderbilt did what Vanderbilt does against Alabama, and that is they lay an egg. And that egg also happens to be in the same form of the number of points they scored against 59 for Alabama. Check out the highlights.
Second down and 1.5 yards. Handoff, Damian, big hole, left side. He is going. Here's a race on.
No, he looks gone.
15, 10, 5. Give it to Alabama.
Yeah.
First down, Alabama.
Not good.
Scanning the field, he had all kinds of time, and now he's running out of it. He's still going to rip it downfield. Touchdown, Alabama.
That would be the backup quarterback, by the way, for Alabama, making those plays. And that's a backup running back making that play.
Lonnie Clark again. Clark breaks the tackle, stumbling and diving, stays in bounds at the 3.
Didn't score on that play, but they scored plenty at 59-0. Penn State and Iowa played an amazing game. It was at Iowa. And if you haven't seen Saquon Barkley and Penn State play this year, you got to check this out. They took this game down to the very bloody end. Iowa put up a hell of a fight, but in the end, the difference was Penn State, and the difference was Barkley. Check out these highlights.
They got a field goal, and they can win it in the final 2 minutes.
Oh,
unless they do this. Akram Wadley says field goal, schmield goal. We're going 35 for the score, but Penn State has time on the clock. 24 seconds left. McSorley, nothing doing, so he flips it over there to Saquon, who jukes past Jewell for a first down and gets out of bounds. They get a first and goal, second and goal, third and goal. Final play of the game with 4 seconds left. McSorley over the middle to Juwan Johnson. Your game-winning touchdown and the first touchdown catch of Juwan Johnson's career.
Notice the way he caught that with his hands. Young receivers could look at that and learn a lot. In fact, there's a lot of old receivers that could learn a lot by catching that with your hands, like looking at the hands. You're a receiver. That means you're receiving. I'm sorry. Just don't see that enough. And Penn State, great win. And when you get a win like that, this could be a special year for Penn State. Not a huge fan of a lot of stuff that's gone on in the past at Penn State, but Penn State football is back. Next up would be UGA. And dang, was I wrong about this one. I picked Mississippi State to win. Not even close. UGA rolled. UGA's offense was strong. UGA's defense was strong. And Mississippi State from the jump was not even close to being in it. Congratulations to Kirby Smart. You got a defense going on, and you actually got a young freshman quarterback in Jake Fromm that is doing everything you need him to do. That and about 10 or 12 different All-American style running backs that just seem to keep coming at UGA. Check this out.
Midfield moments later, Fromm to Isaac Nada, and look at him, just uncovered, middle of the field, dragging a defender into the end zone.
When you're running the ball like that, the play action pass is right there for you. Great call on 3rd and 1.
Then Fitzgerald again, just trying to get anything going. Ball deflected, picked off again. This one's Dominic Sanders. Sanders with 13 picks. That ties Kirby Smart's career number of interceptions.
Yeah, what a great show by UGA. Speaking of shows, and unfortunately not on the great side, the UCLA Bruins, that Bruin defense, held Stanford to 58 points. Yeah, 58 to 34. They can score pretty good at 34. You know what? They couldn't stop you, me, and anybody else's choices of 9 people playing offense. UCLA is horrendous and an embarrassment on the defensive side. Got a good quarterback in Josh Rosen. Defense, they can't play dead. Check this out.
Rosen has time, finds Lashley, still on his feet, and the Bruins still alive and breathing.
Yeah, they were then.
Great play action. Oh, behind the receiver, incomplete for Schultz.
After review, the receiver had his hand under the ball for a catch. Touchdown.
There you go. Play fake looking into the end zone. Touchdown wide open. And the Bruins hanging around.
Yeah, they were.
Toss to Love. Cuts it up.
Up, Love.
Love on the loose. And Love never lies. Touchdown, Stanford.
Yeah. All Mr. Love did was run for over 200 yards against the UCLA defense. So if it's not throwing, it's running. And right now, the theme at Stanford is all you need is love. Because love, if you've seen Saquon Barkley and you've seen how well he is or how well he runs the ball, check out Love out at Stanford. Because this kid has got it going. He's only averaging, 8-10 yards a carry? Pretty special year. Next up, Clemson. Clemson came into this game off a huge win. And this was close for a long time. Don't let that score fool you. 34-7, Clemson pulled away late, but Boston College did a really nice job early on of standing toe-to-toe with Clemson. But superior talent just wore Boston College down. Here we go. See, 7-7 in the fourth quarter.
Time to go one-on-one down the field. The catch is inbounds. Did he get the foot down? The running on the field is yes. The smaller corner. From the 7-yard line to the ground and to the end zone. Touchdown, Clemson.
Nice run.
Adam Joyce gets his third touchdown of the year. 18, 45, if he breaks it to the 40, 18, he can go, he can't catch it. They have free Travis.
How about that kid?
The true freshman innings, Louisiana brings this to the table. If you can get to the second level, you're going to have a really, really hard time catching up.
Yeah, 9 carries for 100 and something yards and a couple touchdowns. Doesn't matter what position that young man plays, get him on the field. If he wants to be a quarterback, maybe someday. But running back, wide receiver, just get him somewhere where you can get him the ball. Dabo Swinney has what you would calmly consider just a unbelievable plethora of talent at Clemson. They're going to be tough to beat going down the road. Let's flip over to the NFL side and take a look at some of the highlights when it comes to the NFL and what went on yesterday. There were all sorts of great comeback wins. Patriots came back and win and whatnot. But let's go to the Jaguars. Yeah, the Jaguars playing the Ravens yesterday. Started at 9:30 in the morning on the East Coast. And simply put, the Jaguars just embarrassed Baltimore. Embarrassed. Soup the nuts. Kick their butts. Let's go.
Completes it. Diving attempt for the end zone, and there it is. Benjamin Watson with the touchdown for the Ravens.
Yeah, and that was one of the last highlights of that game. The New York Jets. Putrid. Bad. Historically bad. At least since about 68. But in this case, just to give context, man, how bad did the Dolphins blow? They blow pretty bad. They lost to the Jets 20-6. Let's see that highlight.
Cutler fires to the far sideline. Parker makes an excellent grab. Side. Cutler rolls to the right. Pumps once, pumps twice. Clock expires to the end zone. Caught by Parker. Jay Cutler and the Dolphins.
Yeah, all right. What, no dance?
On the board.
No dance? No celebration? You avoided the shutout.
On this ball game. Good snap, good hold. Kick is on its way. It is good.
No good.
No, it's not.
To the left.
And just to
Markey high-fiving everybody.
Just to finish off the day, the Dolphins scored their only touchdown with no time remaining and missed the extra point. New Orleans Saints took care of the Panthers. So the Falcons, who luckily, well, let's go to the Saints first. The Saints beat the Panthers, and this was a heck of a performance because going in, I don't know about you out there, but I was assuming this was all about the Panthers being able to take care of the Saints. And again, I was wrong. Check this out.
7-yard line, high snap. Gets it into the hands of Curtis Samuel. First down and more. And he's finally tackled by Kenny Vaccaro. 7. Panthers must get to the 21. Newton under pressure. And Cam Newton will pick up a Carolina first down. Seasons due to injury. Second down and 8. Breeze looked right. Now fires down the field for Ted Ginn Jr. And he makes the catch for a Saints touchdown.
Ted Ginn Jr., by the way, was a Carolina Panther, even last year. So I guess they kind of miss him because they couldn't get close, really, to the Panthers. I mean, to the Saints. Great win for the Saints. Now, the Falcons and the Detroit Lions. You could have seen or missed 59 and a half minutes of this game, and you'd have been all right. But this was almost deja vu all over again for the Falcons. Another no lead is safe for the Falcons because this one came down to the last play of the game, and this is how it finished.
Stafford's throw.
Catch made. Touchdown Lions. It's Golden Tate, and they lead for the first time today.
Reviewing the play, the ruling on the field is changed. The runner was touched down at the half-a-yard line. He was short of the goal line. By rule, we would go back to a running clock, and we have a 10-second runoff. So by rule, the game is over.
Not happy in Detroit about that one. And I'll be honest, it prevented an absolute hemorrhaging, bleeding mental wound for the Falcons. Can you imagine how they would have felt after how they blew the Super Bowl to have early in the season, to have this come as a result, to blow another lead like that? Ugh, I'm happy for them. They're the only undefeated team in the NFC South by virtue of Carolina losing their game. But hopefully this doesn't sort of mark them going forward. All right, that'll do it for the NFL. Now for my monologue today, I wanted to, this is a sort of an association thing. And everyone's going to have a different way to look at this whole sideline, anthem, everything else. And, you know, in our feel-good story of the week, we'll deal with that later. But I want to offer this sort of an association for you. I want to start off with our former president, Barack Obama. Was not a professional politician. Did things his way. Torqued off a good percentage of the people. But if you think that bothered him much, you've got him confused with somebody that cared. He did things the way that he wanted to do them. Which brings me to the current president, Donald Trump. Also, not a professional politician. Mr. Trump unexpectedly won an election and tends to do and say things that only he knows many of the reasons for why he says them. Now, over this whole thing with the national anthem and whatnot, he chose some very poor ways to express himself in his speech down in Alabama. And there's no reason, nor, from my standpoint, need to try to defend some of the things he said, because he shouldn't have said them, period. End of report. Now, Alejandro Villanueva. Who's he? Well, he's played offensive tackle, played wide receiver for Army at West Point, spent a couple of tours in Afghanistan as an Army Ranger. And when the Pittsburgh Steelers decided to stay in the locker room for the anthem, he came out of the tunnel. He stood there with his hand over his heart. And you'd expect nothing less from a guy with his background. Okay, he's fully committed to where he stands when it comes to this issue. And I got to respect that. Now, another guy that's tied into this issue is Colin Kaepernick, former quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. This time last year was causing quite a stir. And I mention him not because I agree with how he went about delivering his message, because I strongly do not agree with how he did it. I agree 1,000% with Alejandro Villanueva. 1,000%. But I will say, Colin Kaepernick put his money where his mouth is. Colin Kaepernick donated money to causes. Colin Kaepernick got in the community and delivered his message. Colin Kaepernick has gone outside of the United States into Africa and certain countries, delivering his message, delivering his money, delivering goods to people that need them. Colin Kaepernick was not a man of just empty words and empty messages. And for that, though I don't agree with him, I have to 1,000% respect him for how he stood for what he believes. I will just ask NFL players, NBA players, Major League players, baseball, if you feel this strongly back up your actions. Back up your words with legitimate actions. Get in the community. Donate your money. Mentor a kid. Google Tony Dungy. He's got a whole mentor program that he's been heading up the last year or two. Get involved with that. Show us what you think. Show us what you want. Show us what you believe. Do something about it. Don't just kneel. That means nothing. That means zero. Do something about it. Because, you know, the bottom line is the kneeling thing is disrespectful. That isn't even debatable. But everyone will think what they're going to think. For me, I love what Villanueva stood for. I love what a lot of our veterans stood for. And later on in the podcast, we'll show you the right way to look at this. Not the only way, but in my mind, it's definitely the right way. All right, time now for the lighter part of this show. And that's the butt hurt of the week. Let's hit it. Woo. You might have heard this story at times during this past week, and the name associated with this story was Kevin Hart. And Kevin Hart was featured in some video. Kevin Hart was featured in a few pictures. And this stripper that was in some of these pictures, seems this woman actually now sings. And her song that she was singing, I'll give you the title in a quick little bit of it, but the title of the song is Lick Till You Get to the Center of It. Stay classy, San Diego. I'm with you, Kevin. That's my face. I'm with you. I guess the headline around this story was, how about a little fisticuffs? But if you like anything, you can find a TV show about it. And in the Little Women of Dallas, it was on like Donkey Kong. Check this out.
Why are you here? Guess what, Amanda? Happened. Now go run home to Chase and have fun with my sloppy seconds.
Boom. Like I said, you want to see something different? They got a TV show for you, and it's somewhere among those, 1,200 or so different channels you can select them from. Not my cup of tea, but there you go. That's another one of our butt hurt of the week. Our third and final butt hurt of the week. Well, I just say the headline kind of said it all. Let's check this out. Everyone's going to lock arms.
O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming.
I like that approach. Unity. Stick together. But I also think it's probably about time we go back to what it was like when I was playing. Sort of pre-2009 or so, when the teams were in the locker room for the national anthem and the emphasis was on the flag, not on what the players might be doing during the national anthem. Just my idea. Worth a consideration. Is it going to happen? I doubt it. But it's worth a consideration. All right, let's go to the real world news of the week. This is without a doubt one of the great stories of the last week, of the month, maybe of the season here in college football. It's what goes on at home games for Iowa. Now, the game the other night, Saturday night with Penn State, was another thing. But when the season started, they kind of started a new tradition at Iowa football. And there is a children's hospital adjacent to the stadium. Kirk Ferentz, the head coach, his wife is very involved in that hospital, raising money for it. And at the end of the first quarter, everyone in the stadium turns and waves to the kids in the hospital. And I tell you, if you can look at this and not be affected and not think how cool it is, and they're waving the phones at a night game like last Saturday, check this out from the hospital.
There they are.
Big cheese. Look at mommy. Look at mommy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Good for you, Iowa, the entire state, the university, the football team, the fans, and all those kids fighting, because they've got more fight than anybody that's ever been on that football field. Here's to you. Next up in real world news, all I could think of when I first saw this story was, you know what, this is a thing, but when you think about it, this squirrel has scored as much as the Dolphins and the University of Michigan offense this past week. Check this out.
I like his pad level, James. Open field runner.
Yeah. Hey, look at him go. The 20. Wes, he might do it. Wes, he's going to do it. Oh, my goodness, buddy, do it. Do it. Do it. Touchdown. Oh, man, he's my favorite squirrel.
There you go. James Bates, I believe, is that James voice you heard at Kent State at Louisville. That was in Papa John Stadium there in Louisville. Great stuff. Great stuff. Hey, speaking of great stuff and doing an amazing job, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but this is in the news department that you might have missed this last week. We know about the Army, the Navy, the Marines, everybody, the Air Force associated with our armed forces. Sometimes we forget about the Coast Guard. Well, here's a note about the work that the Coast Guard have been doing lately of keeping drugs out of our country. 455,000 pounds of cocaine worth over $6 billion has been interrupted, let's say, during the course of this year so far by our Coast Guard. Good on you. Check this out.
The crew of the Coast Guard cutter Stratton, we're making a difference. But we can't do it alone. We're not going to be able to do it with the resources we have right now. We've tripled our removal rates, but there's still a lot more work to be done. I'm indebted to this crew, to the cooperation across the interagency, to our elected leaders, and to our Attorney General, who took time out of their busy schedules to be here with you this morning. I look forward to your questions, and thank you for being with us this morning.
What a great story, though, for the Coast Guard. And Admiral, fantastic job. I talked about our feel-good story of the week, so let's get into my favorite couple of hamsters going. Yeah, come on, look back. One time. This might be it. This could be it. Yes, it was it. Yes, he looked back. I like it. This story relates back to the whole idea of the national anthem and why you should worry about what guys do that are athletes that are out there at the same time. And this is a story from last September. I know it's a little dated, but Virginia Tech basketball coach Buzz Williams decided to give his players a little lesson in what you do when it comes to the national anthem. Now, I won't talk at all through this, and I'll let this stand for itself, but this is a lesson from Buzz Williams to his players, using veterans as an example as to how you handle your conduct during the national anthem.
We didn't earn those chairs. Your talent didn't earn those chairs. How tall you are, how fast you run, how well you shoot, didn't earn those chairs. Me draw up a play, me recruit real hard, me work real hard, I didn't earn the chair. These guys, when they were your age, interrupted their life. They paused their education. They changed their career. And they gave their life for those chairs. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? And so when the anthem is played, we're going to stand like grown men, and we're going to honor men like this that gave their life so we could have a chair to sit in. And in the 2.5 minutes that the song is played and somebody sings it or the music is played, we're going to stand at attention and honor of these men.
Thank you, Coach. Well done. Well put. And I'm sure there'll be some people out there that will have us included in their butt hurt of the week for doing that and saying that. But you know what? Tough. Well played. Hey, that'll do it for us. I want to remind you where you can find us. First of all, there's unsafespacesusa.com. Go there to catch up on this section of this edition of the show, this episode, or any other episode you may want to catch up on. SoundCloud if you want to listen to the show. YouTube if you want to see it. Facebook, Twitter, plenty of places. Remind you, producer at Unsafe Spaces USA to suggest some stories or just general suggestions. Producer at unsafespacesusa.com is the place to go. And right now, time for us to say happy trails.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails.